Greetings from BB Max.
Welcome to our show.
Today we are going to speak about natural law, the rule of law, and how these two principles were woven into our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. We're also going to speak a little bit about the Statue of Liberty.
The natural law is the higher law of right and wrong. It is known due to its universality. There is no need to write it. Everyone knows things such as murder, lying, cheating, and stealing are wrong.
In a sense, it is your conscience, your inner sense of what is right and wrong in your conduct and or motives. People need to pay more attention to their conscience. Far too many people today are, in a sense, setting their conscience aside to do things that aren't right. Posting negative comments on social media is legal, but it isn't really right. It doesn't do anything to help us resolve our problems. It only entices your opponents to post more negative comments. And everyone ends up in a whirlpool of negativity. Now, our conscience is similar to the golden rule. Don't do something to someone if you don't want them to do that to you.
Natural law has always been around, but the invention of the Gutenberg printing press in the mid-1400s facilitated the spread of intellectual freedom, which became known as Enlightenment.
Now, this Enlightenment began as a scientific wave. The invention of the microscope, telescope, pendulum clock, thermometer, and other instruments enabled scientists to pursue knowledge with objective, empirical, and evidence-based experimentation rather than using magic, alchemy, and astrology.
Philosophers took note of this and began to question the divine right of kings, the social ranking system, the power of the Catholic Church, remnants of feudalism, and the unquestionable deference to authority.
Yeah. Now, these philosophers based their ideas on natural law, but they also knew that natural law is not strong enough by itself for a civilized society to thrive. They understood that the love of self and the love of money, power, and control can be very addicting to anyone. So we need to have written rules and regulations known as the rule of law.
The four universal principles of the rule of law, as shown on the World Justice Project website, are as follows.
Accountability. Government officials as well as private persons are all accountable under the law.
Just law. The law is clear, publicized, and stable. It is applied evenly. It ensures human rights as well as property, contract, and procedural rights.
Yep. Open government, transparency. The processes by which the law is adopted, administered, and enforced are accessible, fair, and efficient.
The accessible and impartial justice is delivered timely by competent, ethical, and independent representatives and neutrals who are accessible. They have adequate resources and reflect the makeup of the communities they serve.
Yeah. These are rock-solid principles that are absolutely necessary for any civilized society to thrive and live in peace. Now, as we mentioned in our first show, our overall goal is for everyone in the world to learn to live together in peace. Now, to counter the ants, the automatic negative thoughts of, oh, that'll never happen, and oh, there's nothing I can do to help, we need to employ our conscience as a positive, empowering thought. Instead of pointing fingers at others and blaming them, we need to point a finger at ourselves and think, what am I doing to help resolve these problems? Paying more attention to your conscience as well as more proactively living by the golden rule are small steps for one person, but a giant leap for humanity. And people who do this will be happier and more likely to work together to solve our problems instead of, yes, we need to work together.
Fashion. The founders of our country clearly understood the importance of basing a government on the rule of law. In the Declaration of Independence, they outlined their moral vision for a new government.
Yep. In a sense, this vision is an expression of natural law evolving into the rule of law. As stated in the Declaration, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and,
Women.
of course, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the natural law part.
The next part of the Declaration evolved into the rule of law, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Yes. The phrase, "we hold these truths to be self-evident," defines the unalienable rights as an extension of natural law. However, the founders understood that the temptations of power and control can entice humans to disregard natural law and the unalienable rights.
Thus, to secure these rights, we need governments. But these governments must have the consent of the governed. And when the government no longer has the consent of the governed, the people have the right to overthrow it.
And that's very specifically mentioned in
The Declaration of Independence.
Very good. And that is why we had the American Revolution. In essence, it began with a shot heard round the world. And where was that?
In Concord, Mass.
Very good. This was a clarion call for freedom that still rings true today.
Although other governments before this may have been loosely based on the rule of law, ours was the first to very specifically put the responsibilities of government and government officials in writing.
Yep. The founding principles of our country are the reason why America is an exceptional country. The founding principles. Not perfect by any means, but exceptional due to the principles on which it was founded. Our country has a very solid foundation, but the founders were depending on future generations to build a solid framework on that foundation.
As George Washington put it in his first inaugural address, the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as being staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people.
Yes. And Ben Franklin also alluded to this when someone asked him shortly after the Constitutional Convention what type of government had been created. His response, "A republic if you can keep it," clearly indicates that the founders were hoping that we would follow through on their work and build a solid framework of a successful nation.
We like to think of this as the following, as a positive, empowering thought about our country.
Yes. Now, the people of France showed us that they thought America is an exceptional country by giving us the Statue of Liberty. For many years after the American Revolution, the people of France had been trying to emulate us. Their Declaration of the Rights of Man was inspired by our
Constitution and Declaration of Independence.
Yes. Unfortunately, it hadn't worked out very well for them for a variety of reasons, but they saw what we had done. We had become the land of
Opportunity.
yes, with no royalty, no social ranking system, and a government of the people.
Of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yes. Now, they knew that our country was not perfect, but when we abolished slavery, that inspired them to create the statue and give it to us. Now, what most people don't see when visiting this statue or seeing pictures of it is the broken chain and shackle lying at the feet of the statue, commemorating the abolition of slavery. This clearly indicates that the American people can correct our mistakes and build a strong framework on the solid foundation that the founders built for us.
Although the statue is known as the Statue of Liberty, the actual name of the statue is Liberty Enlightening the World. Inspirational very much. In fact, the statue is known throughout the world as a symbol of freedom. In essence, the people of France were hoping that we could lead by example and enable liberty to enlighten the entire world.
Yes, it's known throughout the world. There are actually replicas of the statue in Tokyo and Paris. Now, how tall is the statue?
It's 151 feet tall.
and the people of France raised 600,000 francs, and this was back in the mid-1800s, 600,000 francs to build the statue. It was assembled in France and then disassembled and shipped to New York City and rebuilt. And that's a lot of work for back then. They didn't have the equipment or anything. And then, what was the first thing, the little tidbit there that's the interesting thing there?
It was the first time they had a ticker tape parade.
Yes.
When that was made.
Yes, the day of the dedication, they had a parade in the morning, and it wound through New York City. And the people in the offices up in the offices there threw the ticker tape down, and that's where the ticker tape parade originated from. And we went out there, Brenda and I went out there in June of 2023. We went to Penn Station and then stayed at a hotel in Times Square. And we got a little magnet. What does the magnet say on it?
And it says Times Square. They forgot the S.
Yes, 'cause, yeah, I didn't notice that till we got home. But that's it is Times Square, named for the New York Times when they moved their office there in the early 1900s. And we saw horse carriages, bike carriages, like effectively taxis, which is kind of cool. And where did we have dinner one night?
We went to the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company.
Yeah, that was cool. They were like that. We got a glass there that we can see, and it was cool. We saw the movie Forrest Gump. That was pretty good. So we said, Bubba Shrimp, Gubba Gump. I got to say it right. Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. You got to go to the restaurant for sure. We took the AAA tour. We went down to Battery Point, and our tour guide Sean told us a little bit about
Isabel Boy Singer.
Yes, the sculptor tried to get her to model for the statue itself, and he had to ask her how many times?
A lot of times she kept saying no, no, and things, and then she finally said, all right, I'll do
Yeah.
it.
So just a little interesting tidbit that was there. Now, on the tour itself, can't go to the Crown. Only the Park Service runs that tour. So one of these days we've got to go back and do that. Go up into the Crown. That'd be pretty cool. But we did go to Ellis Island, the museum there, and we found out that Bob Hope went through the Ellis Island Center there back when he was 4 years old. Early 1900s was that, I think? Somewhere, I don't remember when, but he was only 4 years old when we went through there. And the only thing I wish we had done was we wish we had thought to go see the statue at night. That would have been pretty cool to see it lit up. I think it's electric now, but it would be cool to see. Now here's another interesting but not very well-known story that clearly indicates how inspirational the statue is throughout the world. In the late 1950s, an internationally well-known person was very upset with American foreign policy and actually said, is the Statue of Liberty standing on her head? And who said that?
Ho Chi Minh.
Yes, he was a leader of the Vietnamese struggle for independence from France after World War II. Now, he had studied in the U.S. when he was younger, and he based the Vietnamese Declaration of Independence on the American Declaration and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man. Now, although things did not end up working out well for the people of Vietnam, the fact that Ho Chi Minh based the Vietnamese Declaration of Independence on ours clearly indicates something very important. And what is that?
This clearly shows that America is an exceptional country. However, we need to do a better job of following through on these principles on which our country was founded.
Yes. Now, I know people will say, oh, there's nothing I can do, things are too much of a mess and so on, what can I do? But you can use your conscience. Pay more attention to your conscience and proactively go by the golden rule. Those are small steps for a person, but
a large step for humanity.
Yes. So as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said back in 1968, let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I will add that it will not be easy, but I believe that we can and must do it, and do it now.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
And we hope to see you again soon.